Hi there. I would like to show you how I go about drawing side profiles portraits and how I keep them alive and interesting. I am here to share how I personally draw, so I will focus strictly on drawing stylistic, semi-realistic portraits from imagination. I won't focus on likeness or being accurate with proportion, rather playing with this aspect. So your drawing can be more expressive and personal. We often want to go straight to facial features, and that understandable. I did that when I was learning to draw portraits, and many professional artists do start with facial features with success, but they are understanding the structure underneath. And where it comes to portraits, skull is a structure. But I don't want this to be anatomy tutorial. So I will quickly go over a simplified version. But if you want, there is great benefit of getting some references and study the structure on your own. I like dividing the head into three main zones, three main areas. That is forehead, middle of the face, which is from eyebrows to the bottom of the nose, and the bottom of the face, which is from bottom of the nose to the chin. The first, forehead, and probably the simplest one of the three, you can think of it as a sphere with sliced off sides. It can be smooth, it can be as smooth or as chunky as you want it to be. Usually go with smaller forehead for female characters and maybe make it a little bit larger. Right above the eye sockets, there is a little bump in the surface. Usually, more muscular character is, more prominent the bump will be. The middle zone, quite complex, but don't let that scare you. Let's go from the top. Right beneath the forehead, there are eye sockets. Pay attention to the shape. Those ain't circles, but somewhat squarish shapes. And the bottom of the socket is already part of the cheekbone. And cheeks are quite complex, but more often than not we can simplify them in the square-like shape and attach it to the rest of the bones. The other thing that needs your attention is the way that forehead is connected to the cheek. See how that fragment complements the shape of the forehead? Like sphere with sliced off sides. The bottom zone. Main thing there is jawbone. Shape of it is pretty simple, but can change a lot depending on the person. Important mark is the chin that should be almost always present in the character. And in the past I keep not drawing it, and my characters would look weird, and I didn't know why. Turns out they all were chinless. And often you're gonna draw some expression and jaw will be open. So make sure it's going slightly backwards and make sure it's actually connected to the rest, like in the bottom left example. For me, it's important to make every sketch unique. I do that by manipulating shapes of the face you just heard about. As example, you see same sketch, only difference is proportion and minor changes in drawing, so everything makes sense. But hopefully you can see the power of changing proportions and shapes of the face elements. As we learn about the skull, the structure, I need to address important thing. Drawing the skull itself does not make you able to draw faces. It's only making you draw really impressive skulls. So now it's time for facial features. So starting with the top, with eyes and eyebrows. I usually start by placing the eyeball and raw shape of the eyebrow. If you struggle to make eyes look 3D, you might wanna draw the bones around the eye first. Then I am drawing the upper eyelid and shape of an iris, keeping attention to the angle. By the way, my last video was whole about eyes, so if you want to go into more specific aspects, I highly recommend this video. But getting back on track. And then I am adding add-ons like makeup, the pupil, and light reflection, going downwards the nose. As always, I start with simple shape. When it comes to noses, we are quite free. Noses comes in all shapes and sizes, so experiment a lot. Keep in mind that nose starts quite high, right between the eyes. Next, I essentially make shape into actual nose. It can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. Try your best to don't overthink it too much. If something feels off, most often than not, it is about placement of the nose, not about nose itself. As last step, I do cleanup, so there are no unnecessary lines and add little gradient. It is stylistic choice, but I found it is really simple method to sell the idea of the nose to the viewer. Lastly, mouth and chin. I usually start by drawing circle to give myself guideline where to place corners of the mouth. The shape can change a lot from person to person and depending on expression though. Next, I draw the corner of the mouth. I usually try to draw it as simple short bold line, not the dot, but short line, and most of the time around halfway to the bottom of the circle. Next is upper lip. Pay attention to the shape of it. Unless there is strong expression going on, the lowest place will be often the center of the lips. And look as lips go to the other end of the circle and then come back to the nose. And try your best to avoid straight lines. Lips are doing a little dance, so it almost never will be straight line. As I draw the bottom lip and chin, I keep close attention to the flow of shapes. It goes straight down, out, in where its lips are together, out, in and out, or down depending on chin of specific person. Most often, lower lip is less extended than top one. And lastly, cleanup and simple shading. And adding details like teeth or making sure everything is easily readable. You might consider adding some variety in lines, so lips will show that they are not quite perfectly connecting in straight line. Everything so far was sort of general rules I try to follow and keep in mind, but I feel like it would be unfair to don't show you actual process of my sketching. And remember, it is not something I always follow. My process is changing a lot in any given moment. And I strongly believe everybody should try a lot of different sketching techniques and follow intuition on what feels good at the moment. With that in mind, I often start with simple shapes that represent the whole upper half of the skull. Then I start adding elements one after another and correcting it depending on context I already have. I try to never sketch just one portrait. It never looks good and I don't expect it to be good. Key is in repetition and experimentation. You can see few sketches that turn out okay from whole session, but I would say it's about half of those I actually draw. Making drawing look 3D is important, and if you struggle with drawing 3D looking form, it's totally okay to use 3D models as base for drawing. I would argue that is something that might actually help you learn a lot. But everything has downsides. When I use 3D, I often find myself drawing too stiff, And for me, it's deal breaker. But it is something to be aware of and to try, that for sure. Especially if you struggle with perspective. So in material tab, you will find all materials, 3D, and there will be standalone head or full body. Depending on your illustration, you might consider one or the other. Feel free to browse different models in Asset Store. There is a lot of free or cheap options. Now just drag desired material from Material tab to the canvas. Using these tools in left top corner of the model, you can easily modify angle of camera or the model. I just move camera around with first icon to set up the model in desired position to draw. This sketch I made of top of model. If you are using this technique, I strongly recommend to draw essentials and then hide model. This will help you avoid the traced look. This is mainly drawing tutorial, but most of you probably will wanna color drawing. So let's go over basics. Choosing the right value. Value is most important aspect of coloring because value is key to showing 3D form. When you deal with direct light, a good rule is to keep your light and shadow separate by the buffer. This way you will make sure viewer will understand how form is turning. You can see how I painted the form using only hard edges and two values. And on right you have a simple sphere as reference for lighting. Now I render detail in both shadow and light. Keep attention that there is no value on the face that is in buffer section. That's way light looks realistic. If you are new to painting, I strongly recommend to study this way of lighting first. It's simple and powerful, and the concepts you will learn apply to almost all lighting conditions. Look also on how light is mostly sharp and have very little soft edges. And in shadow, there are many soft edges. When it comes to softer light, we'll still wanna keep light and shadow separate, but much closer together, and most area will have soft transition. Good idea is to paint this type of light from light to shadow because most of the face will be in light, and keep most of the transition soft. Important note is for ambient occlusion. This moment where some elements are deep in the form and only small amount of light or any light can reach it. Good example might be inside of the mouth, where light has hard time to get to. So now we just color whole thing and it's working, right? Well, it's not that easy. This look will get if you were to color whole thing in one hue. Key point is to change it along the way and make sure that is consistent. If light is colder, then shadows are warmer. The same goes for opposite. If we are with warmer light, shadows will be colder. For natural daylight effect, light from sun will be warm, and if sun is not present, sky will emit soft cold light. And it looks better a little bit, but we are lacking key third element of color and most overlooked one. Right saturation help us keep everything consistent. Good rule is to most of the time keep light slightly less saturated than the rest, and to apply different level of saturation across the face. Look how extremely useful it is and how it complements our hue changes. Since lower saturation is pulling colors from warm to cold and from cold to warms. But something still looks off. It looks good, but not quite like skin. Here comes subsurface scattering. All things regarding color above are general rules that apply to portraits as to anything else. But with portrait painting, there is one more important thing. It is subsurface scattering. This magical term means that our skin isn't perfectly solid material and a lot of light go actually under the skin and bounce back with additional changes of color. This is the effect that make you palms all red if you place it on flashlight. It essentially gives life to the skin. I often apply it with color dot layer on top of everything else. I wanna also give you a few quick tips while sketching and how to keep the face alive. The first one is expression. Face expression can change the portrait from dead to alive extremely fast. I strongly advise to don't wait until you can draw perfectly still face first. Expression can elevate drawing level even with not that good looking portrait skills. The good way of drawing expression is simplifying them right at the start and going from simple to complex. This way you can easily create a lot of variations and see what works for you. We often wanna get rid of 2D look, and with face, this is really important. This is something that took me way too long to understand, but in real life, we almost never see faces from perfect angles. So, by that logic, we shouldn't draw it this way. As simple things like showing a little bit of other side of the face or down of the chin can change a lot. If you have problems with that, you might choose to draw on the 3D model right now and keep learning forms of face from that. And when it comes to practice, as simple as it sounds, you need to draw a lot, like a lot of faces to draw them good. You need to feel what in face is right and what is wrong, and this comes with a lot of experience. But remember to have fun while doing this. And you can keep it pretty small. This helps to avoid unnecessary details and making drawing process faster. Many pages on my sketchbooks just look like this, and many more will look like this in future. And lastly, don't be afraid of bad drawings. Everybody gets bad drawings. Don't matter what the experience is. Most don't share it, so you wouldn't see that. Below is full session I did in preparation for this tutorial. And there are few good, but few really bad. And the other thing is, as your skills are growing, your expectations also do. So amazing drawing year ago, today might be bad. Remember, don't stress over bad drawings and keep having fun. That's it for now. Happy sketching. Take care.